well outside the penalty area, and that is some hit. Take a bow. Sissoko trying to cushion it in. Salter! Game over. Ottawa have extended their lead at the top of the CPL.
A little more rock and roll in the intro music this week. You are back in the Canadian Premier League newsroom presented by Volkswagen. Charlie O'Connor-Clarke with Mitchell Tierney. Mitch, what was that? Week nine. I always.
Thanks. I thought you were going to introduce the plant there. To be honest,
we still haven't named him. I know Benedict asked for names on social media last week. I don't know if we got anything that I'm going to stick with yet. But anyway, another week in the CPL, and as you heard at the end of that intro video, Atletico Ottawa kind of well ahead of the CPL table at this point with their win. But just to run through the results from this week very quickly, we started on Saturday with 0-0 at the Wanderers grounds between Halifax and Pacific.
Don't sound so excited.
Not a terrible game, but not even the best 0-0 that we're going to talk about on this podcast this week. Followed that afternoon by Cavalry 1, Forge 0. Valor 0, Atletico Ottawa 2 at Princess Auto Stadium. And then last night, York United 2, Vancouver FC 2 as the Benjamín Mora era begins in entertaining style. Mitchell, I know you were there. We are going to get to all of those later. And we are also later in the podcast at the end going to get to that Canadian men's national team window, especially a 0-0 win over France yesterday.
Let's go, the boys.
Bordeaux. Absolutely. We will get to that later when we've got Benedict on in stoppage time, but we will begin on Saturday in Halifax. We will get through this one quickly because it is a 0-0 and it is a frustrating one, Mitchell, for the Halifax Wanderers, who have, I think, 26 shots in this game. They go up a man when Juan Quintana is sent off in that 75th minute. Pacific starting goalkeeper comes out. Sean Melvin gets hurt and Emil Gazdov has to come in cold. A lot of things were lining up well for Halifax to finally get on the board on the win column, and it did not happen. Mitchell, what did you see in this game, and just how continued to be frustrated are the Halifax Wanderers?
Yeah, I mean, basically their season so far was summed up by a 70th minute sequence in which they hit the woodwork for leading fifth time. And then on the rebound, Sean Melvin goes down and is injured and out of his net. And Clem Baia still can't get the ball in the back of the net. It gets cleared off the line. So it's kind of one of those self-defeating cycles right now where they need that first win. They need that moment of luck to kind of give them the confidence to kick on and take advantage of these incredible opportunities. I mean, now they literally have a league lead in expected goals with 13.57. They've scored 6. Like, it's clear their luck's got to turn at some point, but we're getting to the point now where that luck's turning too late for them, and they already are so far behind that it's just has to be incredibly frustrating. And this was as frustrating as it gets. I mean, narrative wise, it's set up so perfectly for them after the week before where they're the ones who get the red card. And then, it's the 10th minute of stoppage time. When you see that 10 go up on the board this week, you're like, this has to be it. It's the perfect way for them to end their losing streak, and they still just aren't able to do it. So yeah, it just has to be tremendously frustrating.
Yeah, exactly. And sorry, the Quintana red card was the 53rd minute, not the 75th. That was around when Melvin came out. But yeah, I think you kind of nailed it all. It's just sometimes this happens in football where literally nothing goes your way, even when everything otherwise goes your way in a game and it sets up so perfectly for you. The ball just won't go in the net for Halifax, and literally, it is that simple, right? Like, if the ball starts going in the net, they'll win a lot of games, but it hasn't been, and they haven't won any games. So I think to speed us through this, let's go back and hear from Patrice Geyser again, because I know that he's very frustrated, but we'll see kind of what his take is on another disappointing, but still not a loss draw at the Wanderers grounds.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the easy answer is to score a goal. But, my message is, look, we have like a very tough profession where we work all week and then it's like, call it your recital, you're judged on how did you do this week, right? So, look, everyone knows that we haven't had a good start to the season. That shouldn't take away from what is happening in the past 2 games. Right, we haven't had the start we wanted, done. But if you're going to keep looking at the past, you're going to go crazy. So I thought against Ottawa, it was a very good performance. I don't want to start using the word unlucky, but okay, we didn't get it. And I thought today, if we're 6-0 or whatever, or 3-3, you still say, look, we stuck to our guns, we played. I think there was a couple of chances earlier that they blocked shots inside the box, and at the same time, Josh, like I think. You have to give some credit sometimes or it's due to your opponent. That team has given up, I think, 5 goals in 9 games. So they're really committed. And in my opinion, the turning point of the game was actually the red card. What the red card sometimes does not work for you because they're like, you know what? Let's just go further back. And now everybody works twice as hard, no excuses. We just have to keep working and things will come together, but it's progress, it's growth, and we're going to the right place.
Quick thoughts on Pacific. 5 league games without a win at the moment, but the defending continues to get the job done. There's no Tommy Mercier in this game. They spend most of it without Juan Quintana, or not most of it, but most of the second half without him. They are going to be fairly thin. Oh, sorry, Mercier did play.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure.
no Ali and Dom. No Ali and
there
Dom.
There you go.
He's out for the year. Juan Quintana now obviously will miss next game as well, so it is going to get a little bit thin at the back, but they play with the back 3 in this game, and kind of a different look for Ayman Salouf, who comes in and plays in midfield, and I know that he spoke a bit after the game about what he kind of enjoyed about that, but Mitch, what did you make of Pacific, and is this one where you take the point and you sprint to the airport after that one?
Yeah, I think you absolutely do. Like, given the circumstances, I'm still recovering from you making me think I fever dreamed Thomas Mercier into that match, but you said it so confidently. But I think, I think you're happy with the point considering the circumstances, but at the same time, those, again, you mentioned it, 5 winless. This was a decent opportunity for them to end that streak. You wanted to see what the back 5 system looks like. Now you couldn't do that for the full match, and you also probably can't do it next week because Juan Quintana's out.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you want to be a little bit more proactive offensively. It's hard to do that when you're missing a man for a large stretch of the match. So a lot of the things that they really would have wanted to do and a lot of the boxes they would have wanted to tick coming into this match, they aren't really able to do that once they get the red card. So, decent point on the road given the circumstances, but this is a team that kind of has those higher standards, and I don't think they'll be happy overall.
Yeah. Pacific still in 3rd place in the league. I mean, it's very tight at the moment. It seems like a lot, other than Ottawa, nobody's really kind of taking their advantages to put some space between themselves and further down the table. So we've got a bit of a logjam in the middle, but a lot to think about for James Merriman as they head back home. Let's move on to Calgary though, because we had always a pleasure to watch a Cavalry Forge game. Cavalry come into this game having won just one of their last 10 games against Forge, which seems crazy to me, but that was the 3-0 last season, but Forge had taken a pretty serious upper hand in this rivalry. But in this game, that was not at all the case, Mitchell. I mean, Cavalry, very, very clear aggressors in the first half. So many chances. I think Jimmy Chom had a couple. Toby Warshevsky had a few just opportunities that, it just felt like the ball just refused to go in the net because Maliko Olabibelawu would stop it from doing that. He was the Forge player that seemed to be in the way of every single chance, of which there were very, very many. But then finally in the second half, pretty early, it's a beautiful team goal. It comes across to Lucas Diaz, who plays Fraser Aird through on the right side. He goes across to Warshevsky. through the box, and he just gets that perfect touch on it for a striker's finish. 1-0. That's all Cavalry need. Let's start with them before we talk about Forge. Mitchell, this is the exact kind of football they wanted to play, right?
Exactly. This is the performance we've been waiting to see from them basically all year. And they do it critically against, the team that has had such a large advantage over them for, the recent past. And obviously, a team that always you'll make a statement against if you're able to beat. And certainly if you're able to beat in this manner. I mean, this was for me the best we've seen a team play against Forge this season. I know Atletico Ottawa beat them 3-0, but simultaneously the fewest expected goals that any club has, or expected goals against that any club has been able to keep versus Forge this season, and second most expected goals with, as you mentioned, just a number of chances. Defensively outstanding, and that's been the case this entire season, by the way. Fewest expected goals allowed in the league so far. They gave up absolutely nothing at the back, and just love the energy from the start. I mean, they came out, they pressed Forge immediately off the start, and then you just don't really see those levels drop fully for most of the match. They're able to keep the ball really well. Just so much to like about this performance from Cavalry. And again, this was the Cavalry team we were expecting this season. We haven't quite seen it that much, but to do it in a match like this is vital for this season.
Yeah, 17 shots for Cavalry, Forge had just 8 touches in the box. And what I think the thing that I liked the most about the way Cavalry played, you mentioned the press, but the way that they set up with kind of Shamit Shom playing as that sort of inside winger, center midfielder sometimes kind of situation where he had a lot of freedom to move around, but what kind of happened was it allowed Fraser Aird to overlap on the right. Cavalry basically had 5 players in their front line with Camargo, Warshevsky, and Leighton Brooks as well, and going up against Forge's 4-man backline that kind of just created a lot more numerical overload. So Cavalry were able to play those shorter passes in the attacking half, those final thirds, to just kind of get in behind, especially in behind Para and Malcolm Duncan. I mean, it seemed pretty clear that Cavalry wanted to just kind of crowd the penalty area with those boxes and play those short passes, try to open up lanes, and it really, really worked well, I thought, which was very impressive. And these two coaches have talked a lot, pretty much every time they play each other, about how when Forge and Cavalry play each other, it brings out the best in one another. Not necessarily the case for Forge in this game, but absolutely the case for Cavalry, who I know had been frustrated with some of their performances. Dan Klump said they were frustrated last week at Pacific.
On this very program,
I think exactly what Cavalry needed was a very difficult game. Like I don't think that it would have served them well to have an easy game to try and get things back on track. This is a team that needed the biggest challenge that they had to be switched on for. And this is a test that they passed with flying colors. And I think with the final word on Cavalry and how good they were in this game and how satisfying that was after a run of difficult results, let's go hear what kind of quips and lines Tommy Wheeldon Jr. has brought for us this week.
Actually, Ian Allison always tells me that Mr. Southern used to say, if you want it badly, you get it badly. So we didn't want it badly, we wanted it greatly. And I think that was a great performance. We had a reflection, look, we're 7 games unbeaten. We were saying, look, what are we missing? That we were missing goals, we were missing making blocks. And today we just said, look, let's lean into who we are. In possession, let's make them uncomfortable. And I thought we did, and the stats show that. But we also had to be brave because they've got a terrific side and they'll always have a chance or two. And probably that was the most, or the least that they've looked like scoring a goal in any of their games this season. So I think that's credit to our boys on both sides of the ball.
He is right. The least that Forge have really looked like scoring a goal. Let's get on them quickly. Maliko Olabibelu, good. The rare feat of appearing in the team of the week after a loss. The rest of the team, maybe not so much. Bobby Smirniotis was very, very honest after the game. He said it was just a straight up poor performance. They just didn't make use of their time on the ball. It was hard for them to kind of find that foothold in the game, I thought. They never really had much of an opportunity to establish possession or to get forward. But Mitchell, just what was just not switched on for Forge in this game, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah, I think the spaces were there when they were able to break that first press, which they did reasonably often. Certainly enough to create from in this game. when they had those half spaces and half chances, they just didn't do enough in the next phase to progress it to the attackers or to find players in the usual spaces that they're able to operate. And credit obviously to Cavalry, who did a tremendous job defending once again in this game. But we've seen Forge go up against very good backlines and find these spaces as well. So yeah, it just wasn't the most cohesive performance from them. And if you're looking at it, it's 4 away matches now. They've scored in just one of those games. The other 3, they've been held scoreless. So that becomes a bit of an issue for a team that obviously wants to be up there and keeping pace with Atletico Ottawa. The difference right now is how Atletico Ottawa is performing on the road versus how Forge is.
Indeed. Thank you, Mitchell, very much for the transition, because
problem.
you know where we are going next. Let's move on from that game to the league leaders, Atletico Ottawa. I mean, they've been the league leaders for a while, but they're at 21 points now, which puts them, 7 ahead of Vancouver FC in second place after match week 9. I think that it is certainly far enough into the season that this is real. Atletico Ottawa are very real, and perhaps surprisingly so, considering how many new faces there were in the team. But also we knew how talented those new faces were. Ottawa, 9 games in, have not lost a single game in CPL play. That is, Mitchell, what impressed you about this game in Winnipeg, playing against a Valor team that has looked a lot trickier to beat in the last couple of weeks?
I guess let's start where I left off on my last point. They're top of the table by 7 points, but the real gap is they have 3 wins from 4 away matches. No other team in the league has more than 1 win away from home this season, or 4 points in total away. So that's 6 more points than they have than any other club away from home in the league this season. That's where your gap's starting to open up. And Ollie Bassett scoring in back-to-back games now after a bit of a slow start by his, golden boot standards. Getting him on the board is important. And then having a player like Sam Salter come off the bench and nab the winning goal and put the game to bed. Again, they're just being so clinical in these performances, and the consistency of getting that opening goal and then getting the next goal to put the matches further to bed. There's so much to like about this Atletico Ottawa side right now. And, obviously they've started the season 9 unbeaten, which is a league record. And they're now turning their attention maybe to going for the longest winning streak in league history, which league historian Charlie O'Connor-Clarke will definitely tell us what that is.
Yeah, I believe it's 11 of Forge in 2019. But I think Ottawa's 9 here is also equals their club record for an unbeaten streak, which they had the year that they won the regular season back in, what was that, 2022, in the before times and in the old era. But yeah, this is another very, very comfortable road performance for an Ottawa team. I think good to see Sam Salter score. I mean, we've spoken a lot about Ruben Del Campo in the last few weeks, and rightly so. He was player of the month for May, and he's been one of the best attacking players in the CPL so far. But it's easy to forget that Salter was the starting number 9 for this team at the beginning of the year. Kind of lost that job a little bit, but he gets back on the horse, and certainly it's never a bad thing to have both of your strikers getting into form, getting into confidence, and Carlos Gonzalez maybe having to pick between the two of them. And I also think we need to shout out Mateo de Brienne. It's his first game back in Winnipeg after playing the last couple of years at Valor, and he was, for me, the best player on the pitch.
Absolutely.
So, we know how good a player he is. We saw how good he was. In Winnipeg, we saw as well he started the season. But Mitchell, what are you liking about how he is fitting into this hometown team and maybe playing a bit of a well-rounded role as a left back, but sometimes as a more attacking version?
Well, I think that's exactly it. It's so well-rounded. I mean, he's getting up the pitch and playing balls in behind and creating opportunities for himself up there. But then at the same time, at the back, he's making those key interventions, stepping into space to pick off passes. he's doing all the things that he did in Winnipeg, but just bringing them into this Atletico Ottawa system where maybe there's just a little bit more there for him to combine with and create going forward. And maybe a little bit more as well, but beside him in the defensive unit, so he can step a little bit more into those positions. Incredible for a player who is his size, how good he is in the air as well, to be able to win headers and knock down opportunities. I think this has been he's been one of those players, Manny Aparicio, Amir Dedic, like so many of these guys have just come in and played exactly the same way or better than they did with their former club. And that's something that we were wondering about, because there's been so many there were so many players coming in, whether they'd be able to do that. But credit to Carlos Gonzalez for getting the best out of so many different players this season.
Absolutely immense credit to Carlos Gonzalez, because I think we said a few times at the start of the season, we looked at his team on paper and it was stacked. But it was kind of hard to tell how exactly they were going to fit on a pitch together. I think maybe the biggest thing for me that I wasn't necessarily sure was going to work, but has worked out amazingly, is Chris Twarduk at right back. I mean, I know he's played there a couple times before, in his club career, but I don't think we expected him necessarily to be the starter in that position. But I think he has been in every game for them now, and really has been one of the most impressive parts of that team. But let's go back very quickly to the other fullback, because he's the clip we're going to roll. Let's hear what Matteo de Brienne had to say about a win in his return to the club that gave him his professional debut.
It's incredible. I mean, we came here knowing that it wasn't going to be an easy game. Despite the 2 results, we put that past us. But we knew that Valor had something they needed to fight for, and they were going to come grab it. But everybody today, through 90 plus minutes, everybody was solid. So, it's one of those great feelings to be a part of.
Absolutely. Very quickly on Valor, Mitchell. It was a disappointing one to lose at home. But breaking a run of good results. But what did you think of this team? I think there are a couple. I mean, the biggest positive for me is that Raf Ohin started.
Absolutely.
That's huge for them, and huge if he's able to go on a run here of picking up fitness and form. But Mitch, what did you see from Valor from this match?
I mean, you certainly see the progression in this side in the 3 games they've played against Atletico Ottawa this season. This was undoubtedly the best and the strongest performance they put up against the...
We didn't lose 7-0. So
no, exactly. Yeah, progress. But, they kept it close score-wise until very late. And I just think for them, obviously the next step is a bit more offensive consistency. I think they found more organization through the back line. And as you said, with Raf Ohin coming in, the midfield gets a little bit deeper and certainly better in terms of, holding onto the ball and controlling games a little bit more. But up front, I think, Sean Hundle and Abdul Banate, maybe just not enough in terms of service for Jordan Swibble, who, we've seen in recent weeks, if he gets service, he can score. But he needs that service, obviously, and we didn't see that nearly enough. Hundle in particular, a player we know can score in the Canadian Premier League, and just doesn't look confident right now in front of goal. I mean, he had a few opportunities where the ball dropped to him, and maybe just scuffed at it ever so slightly. So, yeah, I think that's the next step for this team. And I think it's Pacific coming into town next. I think you have to you can't lose back-to-back games at home at this point in the season. They put themselves in a spot where probably can't lose back-to-back anywhere, but especially at home.
Yeah, and that game Friday night at Princess Auto Stadium. Again, a Pacific team that certainly has their own share of frustrations at the moment, but I think Valor can definitely put in a pretty good fight against. Anyway, on to our 4th match of the weekend. Mitchell, this is the one that you were at York Lions Stadium. It looked like a pretty fun night as York opened the Benjamín Mora era, not error.
Wow.
Era, I swear, against Vancouver FC. And this was a dramatic one. Mitch, just kind of give us your thoughts on what it was like to watch this game and what sort of stood out for you.
Yeah, I think it was a game where, I don't think both sides will be unhappy with the results or performance, but I also don't think either team will be particularly satisfied. York United, Benjamín Mora would have loved to have gotten a victory in his first, in his coaching debut. And with a couple of leads in the game, there was certainly opportunity to do that. Meanwhile, Vancouver, they come out pretty poor, but then they finish incredibly strong and easily could have won this match at the death. After Guppy saying he would have loved if he could just bottle the last 20 minutes of the game for his team and have that repeated over 90 minutes. And certainly that's a good point. So I think both teams will feel they could have won this. They won't be, particularly unhappy with a point, but at the same time, I think two teams that, like we said, it's so close in that area of the table right now that 3 points will just separate you so much. So, and a single point kind of just keeps everything status quo, which is not what either of these teams really want right now.
Absolutely. That Juan Cordova goal was pretty special. And he scores it from a position that he might not normally have been in on the pitch, Mitchell, which is my segue to ask you to explain to me what this York formation was and who was playing where and just how that worked.
Okay, so I've brought my whiteboard here. I have an extra whiteboard, but when a new coach comes in, you almost wonder, especially with like half a week, you wonder, okay, he's probably going to put out similar personnel. He couldn't quite do that because they're missing basically every attacker on their side through various different injuries and international absences.
Yes.
But with that being said, he completely changed everything tactically almost for this team. They went with a back three. They brought in Osvaldo Leon.
Captaining the side in his first start.
Yeah, exactly. Captaining the side. Went with wing backs and then a diamond midfield, bringing Juan Cordova into the center, which is what you alluded to, which was incredibly interesting. And then Markian Wojciechowski up top. Playing with Tommy Giraldo and then Christian Zeppieri once Giraldo unfortunately got injured in the first half. And it was very interesting to watch tactically. It kind of played out in the sense where almost the ball would go back to their back three and then they'd have 5 to 6 players lined up and they just send a long ball and the 6 players would chase it, which was not the strategy. Talking to Benjamín Mora after the match, he said they did that a little too often. He would have liked them to keep it on the ball or keep it on the ground a little bit more, which obviously, the Pascal brothers have talked. That's kind of how they want to play football. But if you watch York's opening goal, literally it's tactical perfection in terms of a ball over the top to the wide player. Then you have runners in the middle for Wojciechowski to finish it off. So from a first match, I was actually pretty impressed at how obviously he switched everything up and the players really, executed it quite well, all things considered. So there's a lot to like from that, especially with so many players out from York. But again, there were some, when you're changing so many things, there were some obvious gaps as well that allowed Vancouver maybe to get back into the game.
Yeah, quite a bold and brave thing to do for a coach in his first game with a team. But pretty much everything that Mora said in his introductory press conference and things like that were about how bold he's going to be and how aggressive he likes to be. And he certainly did that. So I think it is going to be fascinating to see how this team evolves, whether this is kind of the future of this side. And it's interesting to see, if it begins to come together, because we definitely saw a lot of the glimpses of what he wants to do and what they want to do. Speaking of what Mora's thoughts are, let's go and hear from him, the York coach himself, who sat down and faced the media for the first time after a CPL game in charge of York United.
You know what? I am the kind of coach that doesn't put that on the table. I have what I have, and the players that played today were the best for me at the moment. I'm not thinking of who was not there. I'm thinking of who was there. So maybe players like Brian, like Richie, like Dennis, Baldi, who else? Mo. Maybe when they come back, they will help a lot in their positions and, of course, with their experience and their game time. But we played with what we had. I think we did a great week, and we had very good players committed to do the job. So, as difficult as it is every week we're going to have situations to handle. So today we did it well. Vancouver is a good team. They have good players. They have experienced players, and I think we did a game very respectable.
What of Vancouver FC though, Mitchell? Again, a interesting performance. They are able to dig deep twice to equalize and get a point out of this game. A bit of a nursery on the left side with James Cameron and Grady McDonald getting the start together. Grady with his first professional start, I suppose. So congratulations to him. But Mitch, what did you notice from Vancouver, and what did you like about the way that they were able to get back in the game?
Yeah, I think that's just it, that they were able to get back in the game. I think for the first maybe hour of the match, it certainly wasn't what they would have liked in terms of certainly attacking defensively. Again, some errors that they would have preferred to do without, certainly, especially after the way last week went in Winnipeg, to allow those 2 goals from York United, who really didn't have a ton of other chances during the game. So to allow 2 goals against them is probably the main point of disappointment. But after last week, I know we were talking a little bit about the lack of depth from this team. So to be able to bring on a triple sub in the 70th minute of Sebastian Jakowski, Tommy Powell, and Ben Fisk, and have those players perform the way they did. I mean, Ben Fisk was tremendous, wins the penalty.
Yeah.
Sebastian Jakowski could have easily won the game. Polish Holland, according to James Cameron, which is a hilarious name. And he nearly showed it on a late opportunity that he just missed the far post.
I'm very sure that Robert Lewandowski is the Polish Holland.
Yeah. That's fair. Well, we'll find out.
In fact, I'd say Holland is the Norwegian Lewandowski. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
We've gotten into a hierarchy debate right now, but yeah, I think that was really tremendously impressive from Vancouver. And again, a point that they won't be fully unhappy with, they won't be satisfied with. I mean, all week they talked about kind of keeping pace with Atletico Ottawa, and with so many draws and losses, they are starting to, like we said, lose footing in that race a little bit. But at the very least, they're able to fight back. And away from home this season, as we've mentioned, a point is a solid result. Because so few teams have been able to find points away from home this season. So yeah, I think one of those where Vancouver will be happy enough with what they did.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see in this game Paris G coming into play at center back, which is maybe a throwback moment to his time at York United last year, because it's a position he hadn't yet played for Vancouver, but certainly saw a lot of it at York last year. Anyway, let's kind of wrap all of this up. Let's take a look at where the standings are after 9 weeks of the 2024 Canadian Premier League season. As we mentioned, Atletico Ottawa well out in front, 21 points, well ahead of Vancouver FC with 14, followed by Forge and Pacific on 13 each. Cavalry's got 12. That wraps up the playoff places. They jumped back into it this week, followed up very quickly by York on 11, then Valor on 7, and Halifax still on the bottom of the table, but now with 3 points with another draw. All of that, could possibly change after next week, because we've got 4 more games coming up. Valor starting on Friday night, hosting Pacific FC, 7 o'clock local. Atletico Ottawa on Saturday afternoon, hosting York United for the second time this year at 1 o'clock Eastern time, followed by later that afternoon, Halifax Wanderers hosting Forge FC, 5 o'clock local time, 4 o'clock Eastern. And then Sunday's a big one. It's going to be a lot of fun. CPL on tour in Kelowna, British Columbia, as Vancouver FC kind of, I guess we'd say hosting, even though it is not in Langley. It's in Kelowna, but Vancouver, the technical home side, against Cavalry FC. That's going to be at 2 o'clock local, 3 o'clock Mountain Time if you're in Calgary. I'm going to be there, which is going to be great. I've never been to Kelowna before. We're looking forward to that. But that should be a lot of fun to see the CPL in a new setting, which is always something that's very entertaining. Now, we've got a little bit of time left here, so let's bring Benedict Rhodes in, see what kind of nonsense he's cooked up for us this week on Stoppage Time. Benny, take it away.
Yeah, starting with nonsense. You got some names for your plant from the good people of Twitter.
Okay. All right.
So I went with Easton on Garden. I thought that was a good one.
Sure.
You also got Denton from Halifax. He says Benedict Rhododendron. Apparently, that's a type of flower.
Rhododendron is a completely different kind of plant.
Well,
This is
you got
not
Alex.
a flower.
Well, what kind of plant is that then, Charlie?
I know it's not a rhododendron.
There's
I don't know.
There's an app that we'll have to get Charlie to use. I think that just identifies plants now. We'll use the powers of AI to let you know by next week.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know, one more suggestion was Lieferman Torres from Alex Saunders in our soccer department.
I think that Lieberman Torres has to play a little bit more for us to start naming things after him.
You hold your plant to high standards.
I cannot name my plant after a player that's played like 15 minutes in the CPL. So, maybe we'll get there. All right, Benedict, is that it? What else do we have?
That's all he's got.
That's it. Go home.
Not quite.
Okay.
The follow-up from last week, you guys mentioned the KMS national team. They lost 4-0 to the Netherlands, but they did draw 0-0 against the back-to-back World Cup finalists, France. How do you kind of reflect on the last week, I guess, as you get closer to Copa America?
It's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
A roller coaster. I think for me, probably slightly better than I expected. I'd say 3 out of 4 halves they played were quite impressive. The wheels fully fell off in the second half against the Netherlands, who, obviously figured it out and figured out that if you hit the ball over the top of that very high back line, you're probably going to score a few goals. And they certainly did. But I think the thing that impressed me most was the adjustment from the Netherlands to France. Jesse Marsch obviously identified things that were issues against the Netherlands. He also, kind of explained that they are very different opponents. The Dutch with their man marking and the French, with their kind of a little bit of a different style. Obviously, looking to, they've got so much talent in attack, even with Kylian Mbappe not starting. I certainly felt intense fear when he did come on the pitch, and on a couple of occasions when the ball came to him in transition. But a much more patient game from Canada against France. I think a lot more well organized. The center back pairing between Derek Cornelius and Moise Bombito, it continues to look like it is going to be the option, I think, for them at the Copa America. And I think overall, if you hold the second best national team scoreless on their home pitch, I don't think there's a lot you can complain about there, right, Mitchell?
No, and obviously they're going into a match against the best current national team in terms of World Cup winners, and I believe the FIFA rankings as well in Argentina. But yeah, you do like the adjustment between the two games because obviously they're going into a tournament competition in the Copa America where those adjustments from match to match are so critical. And even if you go out and Argentina kind of blow you out a little bit, which is still very much a possibility.
Oh yeah.
The ability to adapt between that game to the next and to kind of mentally reset, and again against a tremendous French side, to be able to turn out and have such a good performance is huge. And like we said, going into this, we were watching some individuals to see what they could do. Ismail Kone, get that guy out of Watford like yesterday.
Dude,
this guy should be playing in a top 5 league at minimum, I think. And the rumors are starting to suggest that top 5 league clubs are interested in him. As we mentioned, Derek Cornelius, player who's been in kind of the rumor mill as well. Excellent as well. And I think he has another move in him, especially after what he showed in these matches. So really good to see some of those guys prove that they are of the level. And, again, a draw against France, like, you have to be incredibly pleased with that. That's a huge result. And again, the performance to back it up, which is even more important for this team at this stage. That's a big confidence boost going into this Copa America tournament for Canada after what was a pretty humbling way to start the window.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a draw against France is easily the best result this team has had since at least World Cup qualifying.
Yeah,
beating the US and Mexico, arguably a more impressive result even than those. It is a friendly though, but yeah, as you said, kind of roll on Copa America now. They've got apparently a couple days off before they reconvene with Jesse Marsh. I know he's got probably a couple of squad selection decisions to make, but it's good to see. They've only been working together for about a week now under a new coach with a very different kind of system to what they're playing under Biello and under Herdman. So, interesting to see how quickly that can come together. Certainly not a lot of margin for error or experimentation when the first three games of his tenure are against three of the best teams in the world, including the best team in the world. So, trial by fire. But
one point on that. One quick point on that. I love that he rolled out the same 11 again, because I do think that's Canada's best 11 at this point. And, even after such a disappointing game, and again, maybe it wasn't their best 11 once they kind of started shipping goals against the Netherlands when some players came on. But yeah, just to have the confidence to stick with this group, be like, this is my group. I think this is our best group. I'm going to try it again. I'm not going to have one game, dissuade that. I thought that was a strong statement and good coaching from Jesse Marsh.
Yeah, and it was the same 10 because the one change,
right? The goalkeeper,
I think, is actually very important,
and very deserving. Yeah, sorry.
Max Crepeau was incredible against France, and I think very, very much showed. I mean, Dane Sinclair was also pretty good against the Netherlands, especially in the first half with some very big saves. But I think Crepeau pretty clearly made his claim to be the starter for this team. So it's on to Copa America now. Maybe they get rolled. maybe it doesn't go well at all. Argentina, Peru, and Chile. Certainly possible that they don't play that badly and still don't end up with a point. But I think for me, at the end of the day, this is all about 2026. And when they play in that World Cup, they will no longer be able to say that they haven't had chances to play against some of the best in the world. They will very much have that experience, including at a major tournament against the likes of Argentina and Chile and Peru. So I think that is, to me, what this is all about, and very, very important for this team as they kind of enter this next phase in their evolution. Benedict, is there anything else that we wanted to get to on stoppage time here?
Yeah, just very quickly for a couple of CPL questions. Have you guys seen the ratings that L'Équipe put out for this game? They're notoriously hard rankers, raters. I mean, but
L'Équipe,
Derek Cornelius 5, Stefan Eustachio 5, Moses Bombito 6, Kone 6. Like, those are way too low, right?
that seems like a wounded. I don't know, but how.
Yeah, what were the French
players? Yeah, were their French players rated higher?
French ones are pretty bad too. Like Giroud 3, Griezmann 4, Camavinga 4, Saliba 7, which is tied for the highest with Max Crepeau.
What? Saliba tried to kill Dejan Buchanan.
Dejan Buchanan 5 as well. Seems pretty low for me, but I don't know. It seems a little French bias there, I think.
What was Crepeau? Did you say
7? He's tied with Saliba for the highest.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. I mean,
we're talking about it.
That's
what they want.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, they've managed to make us discuss a French newspaper on the CPL Newsroom presented by Volkswagen, which is certainly the goal and what they are aiming for. All right, Benedict, do we have anything else?
Yeah, a couple quick CPL questions. One from Smitty on Twitter, who asks, which teams has the most and least bench depth at this point of the season? I believe you have some representative sample size to make an assessment.
Well, I would certainly say the most is Cavalry. They have been able to consistently bring players into the game off the bench. Lucas Diaz comes off the bench a lot. They've often been able to rotate their midfield, whether it's Jesse Daly or Gutierrez or Charlie Trafford or Shamit Shom coming into games. When they're more healthy, being able to kind of platoon William Akio with Ali Musi has been impressive, or even Malcolm Shaw with Toby Warshevsky. I think that kind of has to be the answer. Mitchell, let's see if you agree and if you have a thought on the least bench depth.
Oh my goodness, that's such a cruel move. I do agree. I'm gonna maybe take a bit of a cop out and say Pacific is the least bench depth, just because they had to use every single player on their bench this weekend, because they had to bring in Gazdov with the goalkeeper substitution. And I do think they have a lot of injuries right now. So as a result of those, I think right now maybe Pacific FC has the least bench depth in the CPL.
I do think, I can confirm this online later, but I'm pretty sure Pacific make the fewest substitutions in games. I mean, I think a lot of that is down to they've had quite a few injuries to begin the season, and maybe some younger players that they haven't quite been able to get up to speed to a point where James Merriman's comfortable putting them into games just yet. But we're seeing players like Christian Greco-Taylor start to play a bit of a bigger role because, again, just kind of getting a little bit more up to speed. But I think that's probably where I'd be leaning at the moment. But again, it is very difficult to have the depth that somebody like a Cavalry does coming off the bench. I mean, Forge have players that they bring off the bench in dangerous moments, but I do think that it's pretty clear cut in that way.
And last question, you kind of touched on there maybe, but Peter on Facebook asks, why is Cavalry FC so awesome?
Why is Cavalry FC so awesome?
I think a loaded question.
I think every team in the Canadian Premier League is awesome in its own way, and we love them all very equally. Cavalry FC are awesome at playing interesting tactical football, and this weekend they were very good at taking shots, and they were very good at not letting Forge take many shots. But no, we love all of our teams, right, Mitch?
I like horses.
You do like horses. That's good, buddy.
That's a thing, yeah. Yeah.
That's good, buddy. Thank you.
No problem. That was the moment where I ran out of anything smart or analysis to say. Used it all up on this.
No, that was great. That was great. That's exactly what we wanted to hear. All right. Is that everything?
Sure is.
Awesome. All right. Well, that was a fun show. We had plenty to talk about, plenty of interesting storylines, and it's always fun when we get to talk a little bit Canadian national team. I'm sure we will be doing that quite a bit more this summer, both with after the Copa America and the Olympics for the women's team. But, as always, we are prioritizing discussing our Canadian Premier League on the Newsroom presented by Volkswagen. Thank you very much, Mitchell and Benedict. Thank you, everybody, for watching and or listening. Thank you, Volkswagen, for helping us to continue to do this. And we will see you all next Monday.
Cordova's going to take this on himself. It's an absolute golazo. Well outside the penalty area, and that is some hit. Take a bow. Sissoko trying to cushion it in. Salter. Game over. Ottawa have extended their lead at the top of the CPL.